Well, everyone, we're finally at the final supplement, the final piece of information to talk about concerning Killer7. Well, maybe not the final, but really the final of this LP. The last information I have to talk with you about, though with the way Killer7 is, it's the sort of game that you could really generate any kind of conversation about. Finding interviews with the creators, looking at beta footage of the game, but this is the final piece that we're going to be talking about anyway. And it's going to be about Jaco's reports. Those reports that we've been seeing at the end of each video that LPBot has been talking about. These reports that I mentioned was from Hand and Killer7 is an unusual thing. They're unusual because they're a series of reports that sound very important to the story of Killer7, but at the same time, the character who writes them never appears in the game, and he's never referenced at all. The events that he contributes to are seen in the game, but he himself is not. And it is a very odd thing, because it seems like he should be a very important character, yet he does not appear at all. And the game never actually mentions his reports. Looking through all the Killer7 related material that I've been looking through, the only thing that I found actually that ever references Jaco's reports was the comic book. That's right, issue 1, near the beginning, we see what I believe is Mills's desk. I believe that's his glasses on there. And there is, underneath those papers, something labeled Jacob's Report. So, the comic actually referenced this. Nothing else does. It does say Jacob, however, and apparently the translation in Hand is Jaco. I guess that's not a typo, it is Jaco Checkbox, not Jacob Checkbox. So, we've been reading all these reports throughout the LP. We've been seeing them at the end of each video. Let's put them all together and see what we can get from this. What information can we glean? What comprehension of the story of Killer7 does this assist us with? You know, comprehension is not big on Killer7's list of priorities, so let's not hope for much, but let's pull all these reports together and see if we can get something understandable. First, we're going to take a look at the first 5 reports, because these reports, they talk basically about the background of Jaco Checkbox. Relevant points from these reports are that Jaco Checkbox is an alias used by the creator of the reports. He does not give his real name. He does not want us to know who he really is, so he insists that if we have to call him something, call him Jaco Checkbox. I don't know who these reports were meant to be read by, but Jaco did not want his real identity to be known. And that's probably because Jaco is an FBI agent. He's been fighting the Heaven Smiles. That's basically been his specialty. As he mentions, he works basically in counterterrorism, preparing strategies and fighting against the Heaven Smiles, who have become the primary terroristic threat in the world, following the declaration of world peace and the disarmament of nuclear arms. But something very bad happened to Mr. Checkbox. In 2004, Jaco's wife and daughter were turned into Heaven Smiles, and Jaco killed them both with an automatic rifle. So this dramatically changed the course of Jaco's life. We'll talk a bit more about that in the next reports, I think. But you remember that story. He found his wife and his daughter sitting in chairs in a bank vault that had been full of Heaven Smiles, and then it turned out that the wife and daughter had also become Heaven Smiles. Not all the way, they still look human, but they started laughing maniacally, and Jaco then opened fire with his gun, killing them both. One other point made in these reports is that the FBI has developed a computer that can predict the future, called Miss Jacob. Sounds like that would be pretty important. Never mentioned in the game, but Jaco Checkbox does have access to a future predicting computer. Actually, the entire FBI does. Well, not really, because the report does say that this is supposed to be restricted to the power of the president, though as we'll see, maybe that doesn't remain the case, because the next reports we're looking at, Reports 6 and 7, talk about what Jaco does after the death of his wife and daughter. Well, after the death of his wife and daughter, Jaco decided to dedicate his life to getting revenge on the Heaven Smiles. And more so than before. Before, he was just working in the law. He was working within the confines of his job. No longer. Now anything goes, because Jaco started working outside legal boundaries. He hacked Miss Jacob to get classified information about the future. Only the president is supposed to be able to get access to this information, but Jaco wanted it. He wanted it so he could get revenge. What kind of information did he get? Well, Miss Jacob predicted a list of 49 events that must happen in order for the final Heaven Smile to appear. So there was no guarantee that the final Heaven Smile would actually come into being. There was no guarantee that Killer7 would actually kill all of the Heaven Smiles. Something had to happen, or rather 49 things had to happen, for this to occur. One of the events was to be 200 missiles launched towards Japan, and the event after that was to be the destruction of Japan due to the fireworks not having been launched. So those events in Sunset, very important events in the game, and according to this, those were required for the final Heaven Smile to appear. Apparently, if Japan had not been destroyed, the Heaven Smiles would not have been destroyed either. The Heaven Smiles would still be around. The events leading to the destruction of the Heaven Smiles, it needed Japan to be destroyed for that to happen. And then lastly, Miss Jacob does not give Jaco the name of the final Heaven Smile. The identity is unknown, so Jaco refers to this as the final smile. He doesn't think much of it, but no name is given to him. In the next reports, 8 through 12, Miss Jacob predicted the events of Cloudman, but Jaco would need to play a role to make this happen. So, these predicted events, not guaranteed to happen. Some of these events are going to need Jaco's direct involvement to actually complete. So Jaco went to Intercity to find Olmeda. Upon meeting him, Jaco convinced Olmeda that his death by the hands of the US government was inevitable. Olmeda didn't have the power to stop it, and the only power he had was to choose how he would die. So Olmeda decides to summon Killer7 to be his executioner. So this basically explains what is happening in Cloudman. Olmeda is told by Jaco that he's going to be killed by the US government. So Olmeda knows that his death is coming. He knows he cannot avoid it. He knows that this is happening. He has been told the future. Olmeda decides that he is going to die the way he will choose to die, and he chooses to die by the hands of Killer7. So this is why Olmeda summons Killer7. This is also why Olmeda knows about the Stacy concert that is going to get blown up. That's never actually explained in the game. It looks like Olmeda blows up the stadium himself. He doesn't. It's blown up by Heaven Smiles. How did Olmeda know that Heaven Smiles were going to blow up the stadium? Jaco tells him. This is how he knows. Olmeda knows some events of the future. He knows something about what's coming, and this is what he decides to do. And the reason Jaco did this is because the death of Olmeda by Killer7's hands was the next predicted event. So that had to happen. If Olmeda didn't die, the last smile would never have appeared. So a little bit of clarification about what is happening in Cloudman and why. What is directing Olmeda's actions? It is this. Olmeda knows about his own death. In the next bunch of reports, 13 through 16, it's said that the next event in Miss Jacob's predictions was to be the death of Curtis Blackburn by Killer7. So, Killer7 being shot dead by Dan, that was one of the events. That had to happen, or else the last smile would never appear. Jaco doesn't actually make this happen himself, however, because while Jaco was investigating Blackburn, he received a phone call from an unknown person. This unknown person insisted that the fight between Curtis and Killer7 was going to happen without Jaco's involvement, so Jaco didn't actually need to do anything. Now, you remember the call from the unknown person. This is the person who had the really distorted voice, and you couldn't hear what they were saying. The caller knew Curtis Blackburn. The caller told Jaco about Blackburn's organ-selling business, and that the organs are being used to create Heaven Smiles. The caller says that Jaco is unknowingly preparing circumstances according to someone else's designs. Well, Jaco, he's following the path of predictions made by Miss Jacob. So Jaco doesn't know what this is referring to at the time. The caller then tells Jaco that they're both working for the same gang. Whichever gang that might be. They're working on the same side. After the phone call, sometime after, we don't know how long after, Jaco was paid a visit by Samantha, who was a friend of Jaco's daughter. She mentions that she's working for Garcia and Smith to care for Harmon. So, even though in the timeline we're told that Samantha was a personality, a persona of Harmon because she was killed by Harmon, in Jaco's reports, Samantha is a girl apparently I don't know, she doesn't seem like she's dead. She seems like she's actually like a living person who is a friend of Jaco's daughter and is actually just working part-time to take care of Harmon. So I don't know how those two things coincide, but that seems to be the case. So that's going to be very important a little later on. For right now, though, we're going on to reports 17 through 21, and it says that Jaco uncovered the account of the Smith Syndicate incident, when Amir Parkreiner murdered the Smiths. Jaco was unsure what is fact and what is fiction, and I'm glad it says that in the report, because, of course, what exactly happened at the Union Hotel with Amir Parkreiner, different accounts of it that we're hearing. Maybe he killed the Smiths. Maybe he killed the members of the Union 7. Maybe the hotel was in Philadelphia, or maybe the hotel was in the south of France. Different accounts from different sources. What's the real one? Well, like Jaco says, it's hard to separate fact from fiction. Jaco also mentions now, after meeting Samantha, he hypnotized her for the purpose of making her coerce Killer7 into completing Miss Jacobs' predicted events. So, Jaco knows about Killer7, he knows about the Smiths, and he knows that they are a prime character in Miss Jacobs' predictions. That Killer7 need to do certain things to make the last smile appear. For example, killing Olmeda. For example, killing Curtis Blackburn. Jaco has to try to manipulate the Killer7 into doing what he wants them to do, to make the pathway open to the final 49th event. And to do this, he hypnotizes Samantha. How does hypnotizing Samantha help him? We'll find out a little bit later. But the important thing is that Jaco was exerting an influence on the Killer7. Lastly, Jaco began to realize that Miss Jacob did not actually predict the future, but rather the list of predicted events had been prepared by someone else. So this is what the mysterious caller was saying, that someone else had made this plan, and Jaco was carrying it out. Who was it? Who was the mysterious figure who made the plan? Jaco doesn't know, but he realizes that these are not actually predictions of the future. In the next series of reports, Jaco clarifies. He uncovered information about the Asian Security Protocol meeting that had been held in Hakone, Japan, and we've heard about that meeting. We've heard about it a couple times now. There were several countries there voting on a plan concerning energy needs, I believe, energy distribution, and Harmon was hired to find out how everyone would vote. However, that's not the only thing that happened at that meeting. It was at that meeting that the future had been determined. Miss Jacobs' predictions were only referencing this information. So in the reports, Jaco mentions that someone in Japan draws a picture, and someone in the US also draws a picture. And these pictures are the things that will determine the timeline, determine the future. These were already determined, and apparently negotiated at the meeting in Hakone. Apparently these countries, they were not just negotiating over energy use, they were also negotiating about how the future would go. Here are different plans for how the future is going to go. We're going to negotiate something that we're all satisfied with here about how the future is going to happen. And part of that was the destruction of Japan. That is mentioned in the plan that is voted on. So you would imagine Japan probably didn't vote on that one, but that was the one that won, I guess. The point is that Miss Jacob does not predict the future. Rather, she is only aware of this information that was determined all those years ago. Someone else drew the picture, though. Jaco refers to this as the maligning of history, and he observed that the end date of the maligning was approaching. There was a point in which the manipulation of history would be reaching its end date, and what happens after that? Well, Jaco believes that this end date will be Kunlan's opportunity to swing the status quo of the world in his favor. It's what Kunlan is waiting for. Kunlan, of course, does not want the world with the U.S. as basically the most powerful country. He does not want that to continue. He wants the East to rise. So, Kunlan, of course, will want to take the opportunity to swing the balance of power back his way. However, to prevent Kunlan from winning, the U.S. government has manipulated many people into helping Killer7, including Jaco. The implication is that the government knows what Jaco was doing. He's working behind their back, but they know that. And I wonder if this indicates that perhaps the government set up the death of Jaco's wife and daughter. Did they set up that situation knowing that it would be needed to push Jaco over the edge and get him to do this? Because this is one of the events he needs to do, right? He needs to make this happen, so maybe the U.S. government set up his wife and daughter. Jaco, however, believes that the government is being manipulated itself by a single man. Who this man might be? Well, if Kunlan is manipulating the East, it's only logical to think that he's referring to Old Harmon Smith, the real Old Harmon Smith, the demigod being, the counterpart to Kunlan, is the one who is controlling the West. Jaco, however, observes that the reason that the Killer7 can win is because it is unpredictable. It doesn't really follow the course of history like everyone else does. Killer7 exists outside of that. And so Kunlan himself will not exactly be able to predict what Killer7 can do. Jaco reveals that he hypnotized Samantha so that she would molest Harmon, and by doing this, make Harmon memorize information that Jaco had put into Samantha's mind. So, this is kind of an odd thing. Jaco hypnotizes Samantha and puts information in her mind, somehow. He uploads information to Samantha's mind. Samantha, as she cares for Harmon, starts abusing him. And somehow, through doing this, she gets Harmon to memorize the information from Jaco. And then, as Harmon memorized the information, it was implanted into Garcian's subconscious mind. In this way, Jaco exerted control over Killer7. Because, of course, Garcian is actually the prime persona, the core persona of the Killer7, even though he thinks it's Harmon, it's actually Garcian. So, as the information is implanted into Harmon, it then gets implanted into Garcian, just automatically. So in this way, Jaco is able to get the information he wants into the mind of Garcian Smith, into his subconscious, to influence his actions. So throughout the entire game, we were being manipulated by someone else who never actually appears in the game. But apparently that is what's happening with Samantha's weird criminal behavior towards Harmon, according to these reports anyway. Lastly, Jaco intends to kill the real Kunlan, who is an old man living in the U.S. government's custody in Atlanta. Okay. That comes out of nowhere. I don't even know what that's supposed to be. I guess there is more than one Harmon. Maybe it makes sense for there to be more than one Kunlan, right? You know, maybe there is like a demigod Kunlan, and maybe there is a mortal man Kunlan. Maybe that works. I don't know. It's never actually referenced anywhere in the game that there is a second Kunlan. It's never mentioned in any of the other supplemental materials, like the timeline or the characters section. There's nothing at all like that, but this says that there is a real Kunlan who is an old man. So, okay, that's where Jaco goes off to do. He goes off to kill him. Jaco's final message in the end is, the real me was always beside you. An obscure message. What is he saying? What is Jaco's final message for Emir? What does he want him to know? Well, a lot of this is pretty vague. Like vague bullet points here and there that I put together to try to make some sense out of it. And we can kind of get a chronology going on here. But as for who exactly Jaco is, we know why he's doing it. But what exactly he's doing, I mean, there's nothing really concrete here. If we wanted to try to guess at his identity, we would have to just engage in some wild theories that really doesn't have much to back it up. So let's do exactly that! Jaco Checkbox is a Iwasaru. Why? I'll tell you why. I'm going to tell you right now. He was always by Amir's side. Iwasaru is always there. He is always there to give Amir advice. He's there to support him. He is there because of the information implanted in Garcian's mind through Harmon, through Samantha, because of molestation, is why Iwasaru keeps appearing to us wherever we go. He is Jaco Checkbox. He is the one who wrote the reports. Why is he doing this? Because he wants revenge on Kunlan and the Heaven Smiles. What better way to get revenge on Kunlan than to help out the Killer7, the one who is fighting against Kunlan? And by doing this, he can enable Killer7 to do the correct actions, the correct events that's needed to make the 49th event happen and make the last smile appear. Then you kill the last smile and all the Heaven Smiles are dead. That is why Iwasaru was actually Jaco all along. That is his ulterior motive. So, he won't give his name. Remember, Jaco Checkbox won't give his name. He won't tell us who he is, and that's because if he told us who he is, he would have to admit that his name is Boris Dill Vincent Vincil Dill Boris the Seventh. Iwasaskov. That's how you pronounce that. That's his name. It's actually Vincil Dill Boris the Seventh. Iwasaskop's reports is what we've been reading all this time. All of this time is what we've been reading. Why is he dead? Why is he a remnant psyche? Probably he was killed when he went to kill Kunlan. I mean, he was probably shot and dead, and now he is dead, and in Garcian's head is what is happening. And when we know that, it means now we know about other things that could come up that makes so much sense now. Like, for example, Jaco's wife, his wife that he killed. Who is that? Obviously, it is Mizaru, because Iwasaru mentions, hey, that's my ex-wife. So that's who she is. That we never find out anything about Mizaru, but we're finding out now. It says that he's his ex-wife. Why did Mizaru leave him? I expect that she was angry because he killed her. Probably that's why he left her. So why does she help out the Killer7? Well, she helps out Kaede specifically. The reason she does this is because she wants revenge on Kunlan too, obviously, because she was turned into like a Heaven Smile, partially. So she wants to get revenge on him too. Well, who wouldn't? And remember that blood summons Mizaru, and what does that mean? It makes all the sense, all the connections, because the blood reminds her of all the blood that was in the bank when she was killed along with her daughter. That's what it reminds her of. That's why the blood summons her. So Jaco's wife, Mizaru, we've been seeing her throughout the entire game. What about Jaco's daughter? Does that mean that Jaco's daughter is Kikazaru? No. No, is not. No, she's not. Jaco's daughter is Ayami Blackburn. Obviously, she's not dead. She survived the bank incident. Why? She's a partial Heaven Smile. She's superpowers. She's superpowers is what she has. Look at how much we can shoot her. Remember how much we can shoot her? We shoot her with all the bullets, and she takes so much for her to die. Obviously, since she is so bullet resistant, she was able to survive the bank incident, and then after that, her mother was dead. Ayame couldn't remember who she was because of trauma, so she was picked up as an orphan by Curtis Blackburn and then trained as an assassin by him. This is what happened. The reason that she carries an automatic rifle is because it reminds her of the incident of the bank when Jaco shot her and her mother with an automatic rifle. See, it's all connected. It's all connected. Iwasaru doesn't recognize her, of course, when we fight her because of the mask. She's wearing a mask. She has a mask on, so he can't see her face, is why he doesn't recognize her. But that's the case, that Jaco's daughter is actually Ayame. Ayame Iwasaskov. Is it... And now what about Kikazaru? Who is he? If we already know who the wife and daughter is, who's Kikazaru? He appears throughout the whole game. He's looking through these soul shells for the soul shells. He's looking them for us. Where does he come from? Who is he? Why is he doing this? Well, he's investigating. He's searching for the soul shells. The soul shells represent the deaths the deaths of people that the Smiths have killed. We know this after seeing the soul shells in the Union Hotel representing the deaths of the Smiths. That's what the soul shells represent. So Kikazuru is investigating for the deaths of people the Smiths have killed. And who else in the game have been looking for the Smiths and the people they have been killed? There's only one man who has been investigating them, and that's Johnny Gagnon. That's right, Johnny Gagnon is Kikazuru. He continues to investigate the Smiths even in death. And they give you a clue. He's dressed in gray, and he's suspended above the ground to resemble the pigeons he sends. It was in your face, right in front of you the whole time. You didn't notice it. And then what? Speaking of Johnny Gagnon, what else? Speaking of Johnny Gagnon, who hired him to do those reports and send the carrier pigeons? Who hired him to do that? You tell me who hired him to do that. No, don't, because I will tell you the person who hired him to do that was Yoon Hyun. That's right, Yoon Hyun. Remember him? He deals in information, yes? He tells us that all the time. That's his business. That's his deal. Information. Obviously, he hired Johnny Gagnon to investigate the Smiths because he needs information on everyone. Even if the Smiths are his client, he still wants information on them. So he hired him to do that, except at some point, Yoon Hyun and both Johnny Gagnon were killed. The carrier pigeons could not deliver their messages. Eventually, they delivered them to the Smiths because Yoon Hyun was now a remnant psyche attached to the Smiths, so that was the best that the carrier pigeons could do. You know, they couldn't actually deliver it to a ghost, so they delivered it to the Smiths because the ghost was connected to the Smiths, is what was happening there. If that was the case, then why did he call himself Amir in the letters? Because I will tell you why. Yoon Hyun, since he deals with such shady characters, it's important for him to go with an alias, so he used the name Amir Parkreiner when he hired Johnny Gagnon. And that's why Johnny Gagnon thought he was talking to someone named Amir, obviously. And then why didn't Johnny get paid? He was angry, didn't get paid, didn't get his money. Why is that? Why did Yoon Hyun not pay him? Because the true mask is an asshole, is why. And now, so if Yoon Hyun was the one who hired Johnny Gagnon, does that mean that Yoon Hyun was also the mysterious caller who knew so much and was talking down to Jaco, aka Iwazuru? No, he wasn't. He wasn't. Little loser. He was not the one who called him. The one who called Jaco was Mills. That's right. It was Mills. Mills was the mysterious caller. He calls Jaco because he wants to help him out for the sake of helping out Garcian. Mills knows about Jaco because Mills has been doing digging in the government. He knows a lot. He knows a lot more than he lets on. He also mentions that he knows Curtis Blackburn personally. And of course, Mills used to work as Curtis's informant. As his assistant. He knows him personally. He has a great deal of experience with him. So that backs it up. It backs up the theory. He also knows about Curtis's organ trading racket, which clearly Mills does. Obviously, the mysterious caller was Christopher Mills. He also says that he and Jaco work for the same gang. And what gang could that be? But the federal government. They both work for the feds. Jaco works for the FBI. Mills, we don't really know what he's affiliated with. He just gets hired to do assassinations through Killer7, I guess. But they both work for the feds. They both work for the same gang. Clearly, the mysterious caller is Mills. I'm sure you already figured that out. But, if you didn't, I'm here to tell you what it is. Now, Mills, of course, wants to help out Garcian and Iwazuru. He also wants to help out Garcian. So many people want to help out Garcian. And of course, Mills knows who Iwazuru really is. He knows who Jaco really is, even though Jaco does not know who Mills is when they talk. Jaco does not want people to know his name, but Mills knows his name. He knows that Jaco's real name is Vincil Dilboris VII Iwazaru Scoff. Wait, hold on. Vincil Dilboris the Seven. Report 7. Report number 7. What does report number 7 say? At the beginning of report number 7, Jaco says, "I wasn't given a name for that heaven smile, though. Until a specific identity could be brought to light, I named the final member of the Heaven Smiles Last Smile. Miss Jacob did not give Iwasaru the name of the final smile, because if she did, he would see it would be his own name. Iwasaru was the final smile. He was the last smile that was to appear, but he could not know this because it would change the future, clearly. Because remember that when we go into the basement, the spiritual basement, we find the final smile, who is Iwasaru, but it looks like Kunlan. Why does he look like that? Well, it's because Jaco, Iwasaru, he has been corrupted by Kunlan's influence in his quest for revenge. Remember, Kunlan is the lord of death and lust. He is Mari Papima, and he is insidious. He will get inside you. We thought he got inside Garcian. No, that was not the case. He got inside Iwasaru. He corrupted him, even though all this time, the only thing Iwasaru wanted was revenge on Kunlan, and in doing so, by fighting a beast, he turned into the beast, and so when Garcian enters his spiritual basement, his basement where he has to fight the last heaven smile, that is why Iwasaru looks like Kunlan. That is why Garcian has to finish off his friend, his informant, and his assistant. He has to do this in order to clear himself out, to clear all outside influences on his mind. Why? It's metaphors. Metaphors are in here. It's because the last heaven smile being inside of Garcian is because this story is not about the world, it's not about the earth, it's about a man. It's about a man who has to kill the past. He has to kill the past in order to move on. The past is holding him back. It's preventing him from becoming the man that he could be. He has to get rid of the past. He has to remember who he is, assemble Garcian Smith and Amir Parkreiner both into the Bloody Heartland. And then, after this, he is able to travel into a spiritual basement and excise the outside influences that is making him less than who he could be. It's because by saving the world, you are self-actualizing. Save yourself to save the world. Open your third eye. The third eye is the planet Earth. And then Killer7 comes to an end. Maybe it could have gone like that. Probably not, right? I think there's probably a few holes in that one. But, I mean, that's maybe an idea to think about. And, you know, that's the nice thing about Killer7. It's very confusing, but it gives you a lot of ideas to think about. To think about what exactly happened here. I wonder who this person is, or what the chain of events here was. Maybe a little bit too confusing, but it does so in a very stylish way. Well, I guess that really is the end now. I guess I'm all talked out. I don't think I have anything else to say. I think I've said everything that I could possibly say about Killer7. So, I guess the only thing to say at this point is to say goodbye. I hope everyone enjoyed this playthrough of Killer7. I hope everyone enjoyed the look at Hand in Killer7, the comic books, the supplemental materials we've been looking at, the background we've been looking at. I hope everyone has enjoyed this and, you know, found it informative. Or if you already knew about this stuff, then I hope at least you found it entertaining. This has been Let's Play Killer7. I hope you've enjoyed it, and goodbye for now.